What does the T stand for in Atheist T-Girl? Stay tuned!
So gender is just a social construct, and believing in God is a crutch. When you mix them together and give them a whirl, what do you got? Atheist T-Girl!
Hello everyone! I wanted to do a special episode for my 50th subscribers. I didn't think I would get there this soon. I suspected I would get there at some point because I wanted to make this a YouTube channel that could reach out to people, but I didn't expect it that soon, so thank y'all for subscribing to me. Today we're going to talk about the other half of my channel. The last couple of videos have been about atheism, and now I'm going to talk about the T, i.e. the trans issues. I would like to give introductory primer to my followers about some stuff I've learned over the years about transgender issues and people, and I thought it would be a good thing to introduce myself. Now, trans is one of my first passions I got after I left the church and came out as myself. It took a while, but eventually got to the point where I wanted to help other trans people. Atheism came at the same time, but I wasn't really into it. I was atheist, but that was just something out there, you know, I just was that. But when I finally started looking at it last year, the more I learned, the more I realized that I liked talking about it and I wanted to be able to do more. So trans is my passion. Atheism is more of my revenge. I spent 30-something years believing in a God that didn't exist, and it held me back for so long. And in a way, I talk about atheism and talk about the faults of churches because, yes, it's somewhat of a revenge, but it's also, I want there to be less churches. I want people like me who are trans or gay or lesbian or poly or all the other things that the church says is bad. I want them to be able to see that what they are following is a bad idea and that there is help out there. So today we're going to talk a little bit about trans. I believe I did a video about this a while back, but I removed it because this is when I first started talking about doing videos, and this is like over a year or 2 years ago. And I had no idea what editing was. I just sat down in front of a camera, started talking all, yeah, and, oh yeah, I wanted to say,
I can't do it. We'll do it live.
okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
But I think I've gotten a little bit better. Hopefully I've gotten a little bit better, and I hope to improve, but I removed that video and some of my other earlier videos. I look at them and I cringe right now. They're still hidden, so they're not deleted. Maybe someday I'll reveal them. But at the moment, I don't have one about trans, and I wanted to give some information. Now, one caveat I need to talk about is this is how I understand trans. Just like in the atheism community, there are different definitions for things, and people will disagree on what the definition means. In the trans community, it's the same thing. Some people in the trans community will say you have to have dysphoria, and some people say you don't need it. I'm in the latter camp, but there are people who disagree with that. There are some people who will say these people are trans, these people aren't. There are quite a few definitions, and not everyone uses the same terms. So while I will do my best to give what I think are common terms and what I agree with, please note that there will be people who will disagree with me, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. Well, they're wrong because they're not agreeing with me, but, you know. So, first of all, what is the definition of trans? The simplest definition I can give is when the sex that you are assigned with at birth does not fit the gender identity that you have. Whether that gender identity is still internal or external. That's a pretty simple explanation. I think I could do a whole video about all the different ways people do this, and maybe at some point I will, but I'll need a lot more research. But next I would like to talk about what trans isn't. Gay and lesbian are not trans. People often think, hey, you came out as a trans woman, so you're a lesbian. Or they might say, you came out as a trans man, so you're a butch lesbian. What you are as trans, what you identify is not your sexuality. You could be a trans woman who likes women, that would make you a lesbian. You could be a trans woman who likes men, that would make you straight. Just because you're trans does not mean you fall into the LGBT part of the spectrum. There are those that transition and then end up in what's called a straight relationship, and that's what they were looking for. So remember, just because someone's trans does not mean they're gay, lesbian, or any of the other acronyms, but they can be. Being a transgender person is not a trend. It's not something people do to be cool. It's not for the lulz. It is something that is very personal, and people do it because it's what they are. I won't say it's never been done as someone just wanting to be popular, but it doesn't make us popular. There are too many of us without jobs. There are too many of us that kill ourselves. There are too many of us that just being online and posting something will invite people attacking us. Being trans is not the trendy thing. Being trans is survival. And third, being trans is not an attack helicopter, no matter how many trolls say it. Now, next I'd like to talk about some of the types of trans people there are. This is not an exhaustive list. There are quite a bunch of different terms and names, and I don't know them all myself. I am of the opinion if I hear one I don't know, I Google it, find out what it is, and like, oh cool, now I know a new one. But some of the ones that I know that are the, won't say most popular, the most common are trans female. That's what I am. I was given the sex of a boy at birth, and I believe I am a woman, and I express myself as a woman. There's trans male. They are people who were born and sexed as a female at birth, but present and or believe they are a man. Not just believe, they are a man. There are gender fluid. Those are people who from day to day might change, sometimes even from hour to hour, change how they feel. At times they feel more masculine, sometimes they feel more femme. And then finally there's non-binary. Non-binary don't necessarily identify as male or female. Sometimes they identify as something between, or sometimes totally outside of the gender spectrum that we know of. And they are valid. Now, you find out you're trans. What are some of the options you can do about it? Well, first of all, one of the treatments is nothing. Some people realize they're trans, but the dysphoria or the disease they feel about their sex that they were assigned and how they present themselves doesn't bother them enough to want to go through the issues that are involved with having a transition. For them, they know, hey, I'm a this and I'm okay with that. One of my friends, I call him he. He was sexed as a female at birth. He tells me he's a boy. He doesn't say he's a trans boy, he's just a boy. But everyone refers to him as a woman. Everyone sees him as a woman. Just a couple of people in his life know that he's a boy. And for him, that's enough. There are also a couple of drugs that people who are trans might take. Some of the most common ones are estrogen. That's for someone who is transitioning into a woman. They help you grow breasts. Sometimes will slow the hair growth on your face and in other places. It doesn't actually get rid of them. It can also help with hair loss. And it will redistribute some of the fat and make you lose some upper body strength. You know, they often say that women have less upper body strength than men. And for me, it's true. I went from picking up kegs for my job to now it's like I pick up a 10-pound bag and I'm like, oh, that's heavy. There are also testosterone blockers. Those are what help get rid of your testosterone if you still have the testicles that produce it. They work hand in hand with estrogen, and for me it got rid of a lot of the anger I had, and also made it so I was more able to be open to my feelings. Another one, and this is for people who are transitioning into male, is testosterone. Testosterone will help a person start to grow hair. It doesn't get rid of the breasts. It might lower their voice, and might help them grow muscles. Basically, the rule of drugs is it doesn't really take anything away. It might slow some stuff down, but it doesn't take anything away. It just adds on to what you have. So again, it helped me grow an upper body. It slowed down my hair, but it's not taking away the size of my voice box to make it higher. Whereas a trans male, their voice will get lower because it will start growing. They will start growing hair. Oh, and they might also start growing a larger, how do I say this word without getting too many people upset on YouTube? It might make the man in the boat grow a bit. And for people who are on estrogen and spironolactone, theirs might get a little smaller. Then there are people who go for surgery. And there's quite a few surgeries that are available. There's a top surgery, which for people who are wanting to present as women, helps make their upper body a bit more enhanced, shall we say. Then there's the opposite, which takes away your chest. Then there's bottom surgery. For trans women, it gives them a vagina. For trans male, it gives them a penis. There are different types of surgery down there, and I might do a video about that at some point, about the different techniques. And there are different types for both men and women. It's quite a fascinating subject, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Another surgery sometimes we go for is facial changes. Trans women will sometimes go through and get their parts of the face that they feel are wrong changed. I'm okay with my face. I really wouldn't want to change anything. But I had low testosterone pretty much my whole life, so I don't have a big Adam's apple. In fact, I can't find it when I push it in there. And I never remember having one. But some do, and so they might get the Adam apple shaved. They also might have their voice box adjusted some to make their voice a little bit higher. They might get their nose changed, some of their chin changed, and it also goes the other way. Some trans men might have stuff added to their face to make it look more masculine, and there are quite a few different surgeries for that. And then finally, the voice I was talking about. Some trans women will get their voice boxes altered to help change it. There is different discussions on how effective it is. A lot of trans women get by with just voice training. I haven't had any yet, so my voice is still horrendous. I work my day job on a phone and I get sir all the time. Now, let's talk about a couple of the terms that people who are trans might know, but you might not if you're an ally or someone outside of the trans spectrum. First is stealth. I remember when I first started transitioning and I joined a transition board, not Susan's place, but another one that is now gone. And it was a bulletin board, and I remember at one point asking, when do we stop being trans? I was asking, when do we get to the point where I am no longer a trans woman, I'm a woman? And I will give a little more information about that in a bit, but there are some people who do what's called stealth. They transition, then they cut off pretty much any contact with their old life. They move, they get new jobs, and everyone in their new life has no idea that they were ever looking different than they used to. Everyone sees them as a cis female, and they never dissuade anyone of that notion. And that's called stealth. For me, I've decided that's not what I am. I've decided that I'm a trans woman. I'm also a woman, but I'm a trans woman, and I let everyone know it because I want to be a representative of the community, and I want people to know that there are people out there that are trans. We're not just people who are hiding. We're not just the couple little people that are on the internet. We're real people out there. Another term I want to go over is cis. Cis is starting to get some bad vibes from people on especially what's called a TERF, and I'll explain that later. Cis means that the sex you are assigned and the gender identity you are congruent with each other, and you have no issues between them. Cis is not a slur. It is from the Latin preposition cis, and it means on this side. Another term I'd like to talk about is detransitioning or detransitioned. Sometimes people transition and life is too hard. They can't get jobs as who they are. They are alone because society rejects them. There are a few who transition but find out that they aren't that person. That's very small because there are quite a few blocks in the way for someone transitioning, and it often will weed out people who are just doing it and not really trans. For the most part, someone who is detransitioning or detransitioned is someone who goes back to being the sex they are assigned with their gender identity. They're probably still trans on the inside, but the world has made it too hard for them to be themselves. I have a friend who at one point started transitioning and it just got too hard. She went back to being a he for a while. Well, he on the outside, but she on the inside. And then finally got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore and came right back out and just zipped through her transition. It's like one day I met her and said, "Oh, hi, Neil." Obviously she was new. Next time I met her, she had already had top surgery. Next time I saw her, she had bottom surgery. And it was all within a period of 6 months, which is quite fast for someone who's transitioning. I'm happy for her, if a little bit jealous. Another term is TERF. It stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. These are generally feminists who believe that trans women are still men and do not want trans women in their places or in their society. I could do a very long video about them, and one of my previous videos, if you look at it, I did was about me covering a TERF and her review of an article about trans people. It was a fun video to make. It's really fun to watch someone for 40 minutes talk over and over about why you're a bad person for being trans. Now, here are some terms you should not use. If you're trans, please be aware that I'm going to use some terms that we don't like hearing and that it might be possibly triggering, and I do apologize, but I want to get them out there and say why they aren't acceptable. Number one, tranny. We are not trannies. A tranny is that part that you put under your car. I don't know what it does, but that's what tranny is. We are not trannies. Trap. Trap is a term often used by men to refer to trans women, and its origin is like, oh, look at that girl over there by the bar. Oh, she's cute. Oh, careful, she's a trap. Trap meaning it's a guy in a dress. They have a penis. They're going to trap you. We aren't traps. Another term we tend to not use is transgendered, and that is transgender with an ED at the end. The reason why is transgendered comes across as a verb or something that's been done to us. James was transgendered. It sort of says that this happened to James. Being transgender is not something that happened to us. It's a part of who we are. We generally would prefer someone to use the word transgender and to use it as an adjective. James is a transgender man. Alanis is a transgender woman, and very cute. So we ask that people try not to use the transgendered. Another term that we go against is transgenderism. It is technically a correct term, but it has been quite co-opted by people, especially in churches and TERFs. And often when we see an article or a post with the word transgenderism, we know it's someone who's probably does not know a trans person and is about to be some crap we're about to read. The way I think about it is, instead of saying again that this is a part of us and who we are, they're saying that this is some kind of act or action we are a part of. Like saying someone is into vampirism. No one's really a vampire, but some people do get off on that or are into it. And equating us as transgenderism often sort of just seems to say we're not really transgender, we're just into it. Last one is transsexual. Transsexual was a term that for quite a while was used by us, and quite a few of the older trans people will still use that term, but a lot of the younger ones are moving away from that. I don't quite like hearing it. One thing I should point out with those terms I use is that a few people do use them who are trans, and they're allowed to use them. I know some trans women who call themselves trapped. I know some who call themselves trannies. I know quite a few who call themselves transsexual. Again, they're usually older. I don't know many younger people who will use that word. But we ask that you don't use them when describing us. Some other terms I want to talk about is our expressions of who we are. Sometimes you'll see the initials MTF. It stands for male to female. Sometimes you'll see FTM, female to male. Those, again, sort of like transsexual, are starting to go out of use, and more people are moving on to what's called AMAB and AFAB. AMAB, AFAB. What that stands for is assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth. The reason why is using MTF sort of implies that at one point we were male and we turned female, whereas AMAB means we were assigned male at birth, but that's not who we were. And then finally there's a variation of AMAB and AFAB called CAMAB, CAFAB. CAMAD or CAFAB. It means coercively assigned male at birth or coercively assigned female at birth. And I really thought I was going to mess up that word coercive. Now, last part I want to talk about is for you who are watching this who are not trans. Hopefully you're allies, and if so, I just wanted to give you some hints and ways to make it better for us. First, use our pronouns. He, she, ze. Whatever we ask, please use it. It's important to us. Another thing is, if you gotta ask questions to us about something, maybe do a Google search first. Some of us are open books, some of us aren't. But often a Google search, 10 seconds of your time, might save you an awkward conversation or give you more information than even the person might have. And then, don't expect someone to answer all your questions for them. Again, some of us are open books. I pretty much answer any question, and I'm happy to talk about it. Other people don't. And even I, maybe at the end of a day after being asked the same question 20 or 30 times, might get to the point where I might not answer it. I might just go www.google.com. So don't expect us to do your emotional labor for you to look up this information. But, you know, if there are stuff you want to know and you want to ask, before asking, ask the person if it's okay if you ask them questions. Just don't come up and say, when did you decide you were trans? Or when did you figure out you were trans? Instead, you know, may I ask you a question? Sometimes we'll be way open to answering. Other times, like I said, it might have been a bad day and we don't want to talk about it. Or sometimes we just never want to talk about it. Never ask someone what their dead name was. Dead name is the name we were given by our parents that we no longer associate with. I hate mine. I never let it out. A few people I know what it was. Generally, if I have to refer to it when I'm writing, I'll just use the letter M, because that's what it started with. We don't like hearing our dead name. We don't like being called our dead name. And we don't like being reminded of it, so please don't ask us what it was. That was, for many of us, the costume we had to wear until we got to the point where we could be ourselves. And we don't want to be reminded of that time. If you are talking about someone who is trans, and you're talking about a time before they came out, it is generally preferred you still refer to them as what they currently identify as. If you knew me from before I transitioned, and you were talking about my history, you would refer to me as a little girl when I was a kid, not a little boy. If you knew my name and was talking to someone about me, you wouldn't give my old name, even if that's the name I went by at that time. And again, same with the pronouns. Use she, he, the correct ones when you're talking about us in the past. Next, don't assume our sexuality. As I said towards the beginning of this video, we aren't all gay. Some of us are asexual, some of us are lesbians, some of us are straight. Being trans has nothing to do with your sexuality. And finally, never ever ask about surgeries. You wouldn't go up to a stranger and ask them, hey, what's in your pants? Don't ask us. But what if I think they're attractive? Well, fine. Become friends with them, and if they decide at some point they want to be with you, and they want to, they'll tell you. Don't go up to people and ask them, hey, have you had the surgery yet? It's a very personal subject. And it's not something a lot of people want to answer. But you'd be surprised how many times we get that question. Thank you for watching, and again, thank you everyone for subscribing. I'm really happy that y'all have got me up to 50. Next stop is 100, and I'll get to make my own name for my channel, for my URL. If you are not subscribed, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, and make sure you hit the like button. Leave me comments, because I love seeing the comments and replying to them. Like I said, I'm pretty open about being trans and talking about myself, and I love comments because it means people are actually watching and interacting with it. Be sure to ring that bell, ding ding ding, so you get notifications when I put out a new video. That YouTube algorithm sometimes is quite confusing. And I'm going to tell everyone, y'all have a great day. Nothing is going